What is going on, Ive Warriors? So today we're going to look at how to burn belly fat, head exploding emoji. Now, I haven't looked at this video yet. We're going to look at it together. But if you've watched any of my content, if you know how I feel about this, you would probably understand how I'm already going into this. But I'm going to go ahead and play the video and then talk about it after. So let's go ahead and do that.
How to burn belly fat.
This fat right here is known as visceral fat. The way that visceral fat surrounds our organs makes it dangerous. And visceral fat is directly related to risk for heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, and stroke. In this video, I'm going to show you how to turn off fat storing and switch over to fat burning. I'll also explain why it's extremely common for somebody practicing caloric restriction to still be unable to lose fat. We are all supposed to have something called metabolic flexibility. We're all supposed to be able to burn carbs for energy, and we're also supposed to be able to burn body fat for energy. And insulin is the hormone that allows us to fluidly switch between.
That is true. We burn carbs, which is like glucose and basically the sugar, and then you're also burning fat, and you're constantly changing through that you're constantly going through that metabolic flexibility, right? That's why the Lumen is one of the. I'm sponsored by Lumen, but yes, that's why the Lumen is an important device, especially when doing intermittent fasting, because it kind of gives you that indicator. Are you burning carbs? Are you burning fat? Are you burning carbs? Are you burning fat? So that is an important element to this. I want to see what he's doing to tie it in to burning visceral fat. There are things that you can do to burn visceral fat. And yes, visceral fat is normally around the belly area because it's around the organs, which is housed within the belly area. And it does, contrary to popular belief, it does push your belly out. So you want to reduce, even though it's under the abdominal wall, you want to reduce visceral fat so that your belly can be pulled in a lot more. Even if you're looking at it from a visual perspective, visceral fat is incredibly dangerous. But even if looking at it from a visual perspective, it does have an impact on how your belly looks. Let's continue.
Between the two. But many people today have metabolic inflexibility. This means it's almost impossible for them to burn body fat. Metabolic inflexibility comes from a condition where insulin is stuck in high. And when insulin is regularly high, a lot of the food that we eat gets stored as body fat.
Okay, so what he's talking about is insulin resistance, right? Where your insulin is constantly shooting up. You constantly have insulin in your body. Your hormones is kind of unbalanced based off of the consistency of how much carbohydrates and how much glucose is being consumed. If you overdo it, you can become insulin resistant. If you continue to overdo it, you can become a type 2 diabetic. And this makes you somewhat metabolically inflexible to a certain extent. That is true because you're burning carbs so consistently because your body is usually in that state for so long that you rarely are burning fat.
Here's how to get unstuck and to go from this to this by burning lots of that. And the key is to keep this as low as possible and get it unstuck. When insulin is high, it sends a message to the body to be storing calories as fat. When insulin is low, it's a message to the body to be burning fat. Most of us unintentionally keep our insulin levels, that's the purple line, high all day long. When we eat too frequently and we eat...
I promise you, I did not know what this video was about. I just went to burn belly fat. Actually, to kind of, I went in with the mentality of ready to say, hey, whatever this person just said, you can't actually do it because you can't spot reduce. However, you can target visceral fat, which is in your belly, which can reduce the size of your belly, even if you're not reducing or spot reducing the subcutaneous fat that's below the skin, right below the skin. But it looks like he's about to move into saying, if you do intermittent fasting, this could help you. It looks like he's about to do that, but I promise you this was not set up. I did not know that he was going to do that. This just happened to be a coincidence. If he goes in that route, it looks like he's moving into that route.
A diet that is high in carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates, our blood sugars tend to spike and crash. We wake up, we have a piece of toast with some jelly for breakfast, and our glucose shoots up. Insulin follows it.
Yeah.
Insulin opens the door to all of our cells, including our fat cells, to be fed.
Store.
And then our blood sugar crashes, and we feel extremely hungry when our glucose crashes. And so we eat another snack. And again, it spikes. We repeat this throughout the day, and our insulin levels remain elevated throughout the day. What is the fastest, safest, easiest, freest way to get insulin levels down here? It's called fasting.
I promise you guys, I promise you I did not plan this. This just happened. I did not plan this. I promise you. But he's right. And also, one thing that I don't know if he's going to mention in this is that fasting has been shown to create white adipose browning, which helps burn fat cells even further, especially within the visceral fat, So what white adipose browning is that parts of the visceral fat that most of visceral fat is brown fat cells. So they're ready to be burned very quickly. But some of them are even white fat cells, and those are not ready to be burned. Those take some time. It has to go through that process of white adipose browning sometimes to even be burned. And what intermittent fasting has shown is that it does this process called white adipose browning, which is it turns white fat cells into brown fat cells, and it burns and it helps those fats, or it turns white fat tissue into brown fat tissue, and it makes it ready to be burned. Like, you could burn that fat much easier. It's ready, it's revved up. Brown fat is ready to burn. White fat is not ready to burn. It's still in its like, it's just gonna sit there kind of state until you get it brown, until you get you create that white adipose browning, which intermittent fasting does, which helps to further burn visceral fat since it's already leaning towards being brown fat. So let's continue.
With insulin low, our body can get some energy from the food that we eat and some energy from the fat energy we have on our bodies. Despite caloric restriction, sometimes people are not able to lose fat. This is typically because they're spreading their meals throughout the day or eating foods that drive insulin higher, and insulin inhibits lipolysis. That means insulin inhibits the body's ability to burn fat. And if the body's not getting enough food and has no access to the fat, then it has to cut the number of calories it burns. I've done videos on exactly how I was able to follow this protocol and get rid of some of my
Now, one thing I would say is that having insulin doesn't necessarily mean that you will not burn fat. It doesn't burn as much fat, but you can still burn fat even with insulin in your system. It's much more difficult, but you can still do it. One thing that is shown in studies is that the fat burning with intermittent fasting versus caloric restriction, even if the numerical value is not significantly different or statistically different, it is still different in the sense where you normally see more fat loss from intermittent fasting than you do from just caloric restriction. And what we end up seeing is that it might be 5 pounds or 6 pounds difference, but 5 and 6 pounds of body fat is it takes up a massive amount of space. A lot of people see, oh, just 5 pounds difference, that's nothing. Oh, just 3 pounds difference, that's nothing. I'm telling you, lose all the fat in your face, lose all the fat in your arms, you're still not going to lose 5 pounds or 3 pounds of body fat. Body fat, it takes a lot of mass to create a lot of pounds to create a pound of body fat, right? Let alone 3 pounds of body fat. So when you see something, numerically, it's not different. Visually, it is different. Even if they go through the whole 12-month process and they see that it's just 3 pounds here, 5 pounds here, that's a lot of body fat in terms of the mass. So always keep that in mind, guys.
Visceral fat. I've also done videos on how to make fasting much easier if you're prone to snacking. And I've done videos on how to control glucose and insulin spikes, even if you love carbs like I do.
How to burn
All right, this is Trenty Talk. I don't know exactly how to say his name, so my apologies if I'm not saying it correctly. But yeah, I was literally ready to go into this video. I promise you guys, I have not watched this video at all. I was ready to go into this video and be like, guys, you cannot spot reduce. They're just telling you to do this, this, and that, but that's not going to affect you. But he's not focusing on the subcutaneous fat, which is below the skin. He's focusing on the visceral fat, which is around the organs, which is in the belly region, which does, as you can see here, it does push your belly out. If you reduce all of this, this brings your belly back in, more, even if you have this being the subcutaneous fat, which I'm talking about, which is underneath the skin. This is the abdominal wall, and then this is the visceral fat that's under the abdominal wall. So that means your abs are right here, but look, you can still have a pot belly while having your abs with visceral fat. But normally when you reduce subcutaneous fat, visceral fat is much easier to reduce. So you normally reduce both at the same time. So it's very rare that you'll reduce the subcutaneous and then have the abdominal wall and then visceral fat on the inside. But if you want a hyper speed visceral fat burning, intermittent fasting 100% can definitely help you do that. All right, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We do these videos every day. We're watching these videos from social media because I had people would send me these videos like, Edward, what about this? Oh my God, I heard this guy say this. So it's like now I'm in this thing where I'm like, all right, cool. I'm just going to look at these videos and I'm going to show y'all that these things aren't the be all end all. Or every once in a while, something like this comes up and it's like, hey, yeah, this guy's right. Anyways, until next time, guys, peace out. Oh, wait, I'm not ready to peace out yet. Now I am. Peace out, guys.